The year was 1847, and the Great Famine had turned the once fertile plains of Shandong province into a graveyard of cracked earth and withered dreams. The sky hung like a sheet of gray ash, refusing to weep rain for 3 long years. Trees stood as skeletal ghosts, their branches clawing at heaven for mercy that never came. Villages that once echoed with the laughter of children now whispered with the hollow coughs of the starving. In the smallest, most forgotten corner of this desolation stood the Li family compound, a crumbling courtyard of mud bricks and broken tiles that had once housed prosperity, now reduced to a monument of despair. And at the very bottom of this family's hierarchy, treated worse than the family's mangy dog, lived Lin Feng. Lin Feng was 22 years old, though his sunken cheeks and protruding ribs made him look like a boy who had never known a full meal. His hands were calloused from dawn to dusk labor, his back permanently bent from carrying water from the distant, nearly dry well. He wore rags that barely covered his frame, patched so many times that the original fabric was a distant memory. His name, which meant forest phoenix, was a cruel joke. There was no forest, and he was no phoenix. He was a sparrow trapped in a cage of poverty and scorn. The Li family had not always been cruel to him. Once, he had been the beloved youngest son of the second branch. But when his parents died in a suspicious fire 5 years ago, leaving him orphaned and the family's modest inheritance mysteriously vanished, Lin Feng became a burden, a mouth to feed in a time when every grain of rice was counted like gold, a pair of hands that could work, yes, but whose labor was never enough to justify the food he consumed. Now he lived in the chicken coop's adjacent shed, sharing his bed with straw and the occasional rat. He ate last, ate least, and was blamed first for every misfortune that befell the household. "Lin Feng, the water bucket is still not full." The voice that cut through the morning mist was sharp as a whip. It belonged to fourth sister-in-law May, whose beauty was matched only by the bitterness in her heart. She stood in the courtyard, her once silk dress now faded, but still cleaner than anything Lin Feng owned, her eyes narrowed with perpetual disdain. Lin Feng hurried forward, his bare feet numb on the frozen ground. "Yes, fourth sister-in-law, I will fetch more immediately." "Immediately," she scoffed, kicking the half-empty bucket. "Your immediately is slower than a turtle crawling through mud. Do you think the family can afford your laziness? While you dawdle, my children cry from hunger." Lin Feng bowed his head, swallowing the retort that burned in his throat. He knew the truth. He had woken before dawn, made 3 trips to the well already, but the water level was so low that each bucket took twice as long to fill, but explaining would only earn him more scorn. In the Li household, truth was a luxury the poor could not afford. As he trudged back toward the well, the familiar gnawing in his stomach intensified. It wasn't just hunger, it was a deep, hollow ache that seemed to echo in his bones. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days. The family's dinner last night had been a thin gruel of millet and wild herbs, so watery he could count the grains. The elders got the thickest portions. The children got the next. The working men got what remained. And Lin Feng, he got the pot scrapings if he was lucky. But today, something was different. As he lowered the bucket into the well's murky depths, a strange warmth began to bloom in his chest. It started as a gentle tingle, then grew into a pulsing heat that spread through his meridians like liquid sunlight. His vision sharpened. The gray world suddenly burst into color. The brown of the mud, the green of the few stubborn weeds, the blue of the distant, cloudless sky. He could hear the heartbeat of a sparrow in a tree 100 paces away. He could smell the faint scent of rain that wasn't there, the memory of moisture in the earth. And then a voice, not in his ears, but in his mind. Ancient, resonant, powerful. The dragon's stomach awakens. The heaven's mandate recognizes the worthy. You shall never hunger again. Lin Feng gasped, dropping the bucket. The rope burned his palms, but he barely felt it. His heart hammered against his ribs. Was he dreaming? Had starvation finally addled his mind? Before he could process the impossible, another sensation overwhelmed him. A craving so intense it brought him to his knees. Not for water, not for gruel, for meat. The thought of tender, juicy pork belly, of slow braised beef that melted on the tongue, of roasted chicken with crispy skin and succulent flesh. His mouth flooded with saliva. His stomach, which had been a hollow pit of pain, now roared with a demand that shook his entire being. Meat. Now. He stumbled to his feet, his body moving with a purpose he didn't understand. He wasn't walking toward the family kitchen. He was heading toward the woods behind the compound where wild game might still linger, desperate and thin. Lin Feng, where do you think you're going? This time it was eldest sister-in-law Hua, her voice carrying the authority of the household's matriarch in waiting. She stood at the courtyard gate, her arms crossed, her expression one of cold suspicion. The family hasn't authorized extra foraging. Return to your duties. Lin Feng tried to speak, but the craving was a fire in his throat. He could only shake his head, his eyes glazed with a golden light that hadn't been there moments before. Hua's eyes narrowed. Disobedience in this time of famine? She stepped forward, her hand raising as if to strike. You ungrateful whelp! While the rest of us sacrifice, you seek to steal from the wild? Do you think the heavens will favor a thief? But Lin Feng was no longer fully present. The dragon's stomach within him pulsed, and with it came a strange knowledge. He could feel life forces around him. He could sense the faint, fading vitality of a rabbit hiding in a burrow 30 paces east. He could detect the lingering essence of a deer that had passed through the woods at dawn. He moved, not with the shuffling gait of a starving man, but with a fluid, predatory grace that made Hua stumble back in surprise. He disappeared into the tree line before she could call for help. The woods were silent, deathly so. But to Lin Feng's awakened senses, they sang with the whispers of life. He followed the trail, his feet barely touching the ground. He found the rabbit's burrow, not by sight, but by the warm pulse of the creature's fear. He reached in, and his hand closed around soft fur. The rabbit was small, half-starved like everything else. A normal man would have hesitated. Lin Feng did not. He built a small fire with practiced efficiency, another memory from before the famine, when his father had taught him survival skills. He cleaned the rabbit with swift, precise movements, and then he did something that would have horrified his Confucian-educated family. He ate it raw. The moment the first bite of warm, bloody flesh touched his tongue, the world exploded. Flavors detonated in his mouth. Not just the taste of rabbit, but the essence of the herbs it had eaten, the minerals from the soil, the energy of the sun that had grown the grass. It was a symphony of nourishment that traveled down his throat and into his core, where the dragon's stomach devoured it with ecstatic greed. And then, the transformation. Lin Feng's body hummed with power, his muscles, once thin and weak, filled with dense, corded strength. His skin, pale and sallow, gained a healthy glow. The constant ache of hunger vanished, replaced by a profound, satisfying fullness. He could feel energy, Qi flowing through his meridians, cleansing blockages, repairing damage from years of malnutrition. He ate the entire rabbit, bones and all, and when he was done, he wasn't just satisfied, he was empowered. He stood brushing dirt from his hands. The golden light in his eyes faded to a subtle amber gleam. He could feel the dragon's stomach settling within him, a warm, potent core at his center. It wasn't just about eating anymore, it was about absorption, about transformation, about power. As he walked back toward the compound, a plan began to form in his mind. The famine had broken people. It had turned family against family, neighbor against neighbor. The Li household was a microcosm of this cruelty. 5 brothers, 5 sisters-in-law, all scrambling for scraps, all blaming the weakest link. But what if the weakest link became the strongest? What if he, Lin Feng, the despised orphan, could not only survive the famine, but thrive in it? What if he could eat meat daily while others starved? What if he could use this power not just for himself, but to change the dynamics of the entire household? And what of the 5 sisters-in-law? Eldest sister-in-law Hua, proud and calculating, who dreamed of controlling the family's future. Second sister-in-law Lan, gentle but weak-willed, who suffered in silence. Third sister-in-law Xu, sharp-tongued and ambitious, who saw every interaction as a competition. Fourth sister-in-law Mei, beautiful but bitter, whose resentment poisoned everything she touched. Fifth sister-in-law Yu, the youngest, innocent and kind, who still looked at Lin Feng with pity rather than scorn. They all despised him. They all saw him as a burden. But what if he could win their hearts? Not through submission, but through strength. Not through begging, but through providing. The thought was audacious, dangerous, impossible. But the dragon's stomach within him pulsed with promise. As Lin Feng approached the compound, he saw a commotion in the courtyard. The family had gathered, their faces grim. At the center stood the family head, his grandfather, Li Wei, a man whose authority was absolute, whose word was law. "Lin Feng!" Grandfather Li's voice boomed, cutting through the tense silence. "Where have you been? The water is still not fetched. The fields remain unplowed. While you wander, the family suffers." Lin Feng stopped, meeting the old man's gaze. For the first time in years, he did not lower his eyes. "I was hunting, grandfather," he said, his voice steady, clear, carrying a new resonance that made several family members startle. "Hunting?" Third sister-in-law Xu laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "With what? Your bare hands? Did you catch a butterfly to feed us, little brother?" Lin Feng reached into the pouch at his side, a ragged thing he'd sewn himself, and pulled out not a butterfly, but the pelt of the rabbit he'd eaten. It was clean, expertly skinned, the fur still soft. He tossed it at Xu's feet. The laughter died in her throat. The family stared at the pelt, then at Lin Feng, then at each other. In a time when even leather was valuable, when clothing was patched until it disintegrated, a fresh rabbit pelt was a small fortune. "Where did you get this?" Grandfather Li demanded, his eyes sharp with suspicion and something else. Hope. "The woods," Lin Feng said simply. "There is still game if one knows how to look." A murmur ran through the family. Hope was a dangerous thing in a famine. It could lead to reckless decisions, but it could also be the spark that kept people alive. "Then you will hunt for the family," Grandfather Li declared. "You will provide meat. In return, you will receive a full portion at meals. No more scraps." It was a monumental shift. Lin Feng, the burden, was now a provider. But as the family dispersed, their expressions mixed. Gratitude, suspicion, jealousy, calculation. Lin Feng caught the eyes of the 5 sisters-in-law. Hua's gaze was analytical, assessing his new value. Lan's held a flicker of cautious hope. Xu's burned with competitive resentment. May's was unreadable, but her lips were pressed tight. Yue's shone with genuine, surprised admiration. And Lin Feng knew this was only the beginning. The dragon's stomach had awakened. The famine would test him. The family would challenge him. The world would try to break him, but he would eat meat daily. He would grow stronger, and he would win the hearts of the 5 sisters-in-law, not through weakness, but through the undeniable power of a man who could thrive when others merely survived. As the sun set over the desolate plains, casting long shadows across the Li compound, Lin Feng stood in the courtyard, feeling the warm pulse of the dragon's stomach within him. He looked up at the first stars appearing in the twilight sky. "Let the famine come," he thought. "Let the challenges come. I am ready." The morning sun rose over the Li compound like a reluctant witness, casting long golden shadows across the cracked earth. The air, usually thick with the despair of famine, now carried a different scent. Hope mingled with the faint, tantalizing aroma of roasting meat. Lin Feng stood at the edge of the woods, his body humming with the quiet power of the dragon's stomach. He had slept deeply for the first time in years, not on straw, but on a bed of soft moss he had gathered, his new strength making even the earth feel like a pillow. The memory of the rabbit's warmth still pulsed within him, a golden ember at his core. He could feel the game now, not just see or hear, but feel. The heartbeat of a pheasant in the underbrush, the cautious tread of a young deer at the forest's edge, the burrow of a fat marmot beneath the roots of an ancient pine. The dragon's stomach didn't just hunger, it knew. But today, Lin Feng had a different goal. The family needed more than one rabbit. They needed a feast. And he needed to prove that his power was not a fluke, but a blessing that could lift them all from the brink. He moved through the woods with a predator's silence, his senses expanded. He bypassed the smaller game, seeking something worthy of a celebration. His eyes, now flecked with amber, scanned the canopy, and then he saw it, a wild boar, massive and bristling, rooting for tubers in a clearing. It was a beast that could kill a man, its tusks like curved daggers, its hide thick as leather. A normal hunter would have hesitated. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't charge. He didn't need to. The dragon's stomach within him pulsed, and a new understanding flowed into his mind. Absorb the essence, dominate the spirit. Lin Feng stepped into the clearing. The boar snorted, raising its head, small eyes gleaming with aggression. It pawed the ground, lowering its head to charge. Lin Feng didn't move. He simply opened his mouth and inhaled. It wasn't a normal breath. A visible vortex of golden energy swirled from the boar toward him. Not its physical form, but its vitality, its fierce spirit, its primal strength. The boar froze, confusion in its eyes. Then it trembled. Its aggressive stance softened. It let out a low, submissive grunt and bowed its massive head. Lin Feng walked forward and placed a hand on the boar's bristly forehead. A warm connection formed. He saw flashes of the boar's life, the forest, the herd, the struggle for survival, and he offered something in return: protection, purpose, a share of the dragon's blessing. The boar nudged his hand gently. Lin Feng had not killed the boar. He had tamed it. He led the enormous animal back toward the compound, a surreal sight. The ragged, once despised orphan walking calmly beside a creature that could trample a house. As they approached the courtyard, shouts erupted. "Monster! A demon beast!" Fourth sister-in-law Mei screamed, grabbing her children and pulling them behind her. Eldest sister-in-law Hua stepped forward, her eyes wide with calculation, not fear. "Lin Feng, what is the meaning of this?" Lin Feng stopped at the courtyard gate. "This is not a monster, eldest sister-in-law. This is provision. The forest yields to those who understand its language." Grandfather Li emerged from the main house, leaning on his cane, his sharp eyes taking in the scene. The boar, sensing the elder's authority, let out a soft rumble but remained calm. "You tamed it," Grandfather Li stated, his voice a mixture of awe and suspicion. "How?" "The heavens granted me a gift," Lin Feng said simply, not boasting, not explaining. "A gift to help the family survive." The family gathered, a circle of hungry, wary faces. The sight of the massive boar, alive and docile, stirred something deeper than hunger. It stirred wonder. "Can it provide meat?" Third sister-in-law Shu asked, her sharp tongue tempered by curiosity. "It can," Lin Feng replied, "and more. It can help us hunt, guard the compound, and even till the soil when the rains return. But first, we eat." He looked at the 5 sisters-in-law. "Will you help me prepare a feast?" A silence fell. Helping Lin Feng meant acknowledging his new status. It meant stepping down from their pedestal of scorn, but the promise of meat, real, succulent, life-saving meat, was a siren song none could resist. Eldest sister-in-law Hua nodded first, her decision pragmatic. "We will prepare the kitchen. Lan, Shu, fetch water and firewood. Mei, Yue, help Lin Feng with the animal." The work began, and as they worked, Lin Feng observed. Hua moved with efficient authority, directing the others, but her eyes kept flicking to him, assessing, calculating his value. Lan, gentle and quiet, worked with a soft kindness, occasionally glancing at him with a hint of pity that was slowly transforming into respect. Shu, competitive and sharp, tried to outdo the others in speed, her movements precise, her gaze challenging him as if to say, "Don't think this makes you better than us." Mei, beautiful but bitter, worked with a cold detachment, but Lin Feng noticed her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming reality of hope. And Yue, the youngest, worked with a bright, eager energy, her smiles genuine, her eyes sparkling with admiration as she watched him calm the boar with a mere touch. The preparation was a symphony of survival. Lin Feng showed them how to butcher the boar with respect, using every part: the meat for roasting, the bones for broth, the fat for rendering, the hide for future use. He taught them techniques his father had once shown him, techniques that felt now like memories from another life, enhanced by the dragon's stomach's wisdom. As the sun climbed, the compound filled with the most glorious scent any of them had experienced in years. The rich, smoky aroma of roasting pork, the savory depth of simmering broth, the crisp scent of wild herbs gathered from the edges of the field. Children, who had been listless and crying, now gathered around the cooking pits, their eyes wide, their mouths watering. Even the elders, who had been resigned to a slow decline, sat up straighter, a flicker of life returning to their eyes. When the feast was ready, Grandfather Li called the family to the main courtyard. A long table, usually bare, now groaned under platters of glistening roasted boar meat, bowls of rich broth, and heaps of wild greens. But Lin Feng did not sit at the table. He stood aside. "Lin Feng, join us," Grandfather Li commanded. "The provider does not eat until the family is fed." Lin Feng said, his voice carrying the weight of ancient custom. "Please, eat." It was a test, and the family understood. They ate, and as they did, something miraculous happened. The first bite of tender, flavorful meat seemed to unlock more than just hunger. It unlocked memory, the taste of better times, the feeling of fullness, the joy of sharing a meal. Tears streamed down some faces. Laughter, rusty and unfamiliar, bubbled from others. Lin Feng watched, his dragon stomach sensing not just their physical nourishment, but the subtle shift in their ki, their life energy. The despair that had clung to them like a shroud began to lift, replaced by a fragile, burgeoning hope. After the meal, as the family rested in a food coma of unprecedented luxury, Lin Feng felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Yue, the youngest sister-in-law. "Lin Feng," she whispered, her eyes shining. "Thank you for the food, for seeing us." He nodded. "You are family, Yue. Family should see each other." She blushed, a delicate pink on her cheeks, and hurried away. But Lin Feng noticed the way her glance lingered, the way her smile seemed meant only for him. Later, as he cleaned the cooking utensils by the well, Lan approached, carrying a cup of warm water. "You should drink," she said softly, offering it. "You worked the hardest." He accepted, their fingers brushing briefly. She didn't pull away immediately. "Your parents, they would be proud of you, Lin Feng." The words, simple and sincere, struck him deeper than any blow. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just a gentle woman, but one who had endured silent suffering, who recognized strength in another. "Thank you, second sister-in-law," he said, his voice rough with emotion. She smiled, a small, sad, beautiful thing, and left. But not all reactions were warm. As dusk painted the sky in shades of violet and gold, Shu found him checking the perimeter of the compound, the tamed boar resting nearby like a loyal hound. "Quite the performance today," Shu said, her arms crossed, her tone laced with challenge. "Taming beasts, feeding the family, playing the humble hero. Do you think this changes everything, Lin Feng?" He met her gaze calmly. "I think survival changes everything, third sister-in-law. The famine doesn't care about pride or hierarchy. It only cares about strength. Today, I provided strength, that is all." She studied him, her sharp eyes searching for arrogance, for guile. Finding none, she huffed. "Don't get comfortable, the family is fickle. Today they cheer, tomorrow they may fear what they don't understand. Then I will continue to provide," he said simply. "Understanding will follow." She turned to leave, then paused. "The broth, it was exceptional. You used a root I didn't recognize." "Wild ginger," he said. "It grows near the eastern stream. It aids digestion and warms the body." She nodded, a flicker of genuine curiosity in her eyes before walking away. Lin Feng noted it. Shu's ambition was a blade, but it could be honed, directed. Night fell, clear and cold. The family slept more peacefully than they had in years, bellies full, hearts lighter. Lin Feng sat on the roof of his shed, gazing at the stars, the dragon's stomach a warm, steady sun within him. He could feel the shifting dynamics within the compound. The seed of his power had been planted. Now it needed to grow. But as he meditated, a new sensation prickled at the edge of his awareness. Not from within the compound, but from beyond. A cold, hungry presence, distant but focused, like a shadow stretching toward a flame. The dragon's stomach pulsed, a warning. Other powers exist, other hungers. Lin Feng's eyes opened, glowing faintly, amber in the darkness. The famine had broken the world, and in the broken places things stirred. Things that fed on despair, on weakness, on chaos. His rise had not gone unnoticed. The days that followed the boar feast were unlike any the Li compound had known in 3 long years of famine. Where once there had only been the hollow echo of empty bellies and the ashen taste of boiled bark, now the air carried the rich, smoky scent of roasted meat, simmering bone broth, and wild roots that Lin Feng foraged with an uncanny, almost supernatural precision. The family spirits, once brittle as dried reeds, began to harden into something resembling hope. But hope in a famine is a dangerous flame. It draws moths and it draws wolves. Lin Feng moved through the compound with a quiet authority that had once been unthinkable. He was no longer the bent-backed orphan who slept in the chicken shed. He was the provider, the hunter, the silent pillar upon which the Li household now leaned. His body, once a map of starvation, had filled out with corded muscle and latent power. The dragon's stomach pulsed within him like a second heart, a warm golden core that demanded sustenance and rewarded it with strength. He ate meat daily now, not out of gluttony, but necessity. Each meal was a cultivation ritual. The essence of the beast he consumed dissolved into his meridians, clearing blockages, forging his bones, and awakening ancient instincts buried deep in his blood. But the sisters-in-law were the true mirror of his transformation. Eldest sister-in-law Hua, once the cold architect of the household's hierarchy, now found her calculations shifting. She watched Lin Feng sharpen his hunting knives by the courtyard fire, his movements fluid and precise, his eyes reflecting the flames like polished amber. She had spent years believing that power came from birthright and control. Now, she saw that true power came from the earth, from survival, from a man who could turn a barren wasteland into a hunting ground. She began leaving the best cuts of meat on his plate before he could even sit. A silent tribute, a quiet acknowledgement. Second sister-in-law Lan, gentle and enduring, found her quiet respect blossoming into something warmer. She noticed how Lin Feng never ate until the children were full, how he mended the roof leaks with his bare hands, how he carried water for the elders without complaint. One evening, as she handed him a bowl of herbal tea to soothe his muscles, their fingers brushed. She didn't pull away. "You carry the weight of this family, Lin Feng," she whispered, her voice soft as falling snow. "But even mountains need rain to rest." He met her gaze, and for the first time, he saw not pity, but recognition. "And even gentle streams can carve stone," he replied. She smiled, a fragile, beautiful thing, and left him with the tea steaming in his hands. Third sister-in-law Xu, sharp-tongued and fiercely competitive, struggled the most. Her pride was a blade, and Lin Feng's rise had nicked it deeply. She refused to show weakness, but her eyes betrayed her. She watched him spar with the compound's hired guards, disarming 3 men in as many seconds with nothing but a wooden staff and effortless grace. She began practicing in secret at dawn, mimicking his stances, her movements growing sharper, her breath steadier. When he caught her one morning, she didn't flinch. "If I am to survive this famine," she said, chin raised, "I will not be a burden. Teach me." Lin Feng didn't laugh. He simply tossed her a heavier staff. "Then stop copying. Start feeling." She gripped it, knuckles white, and for the first time, she listened. Fourth sister-in-law Mei, beautiful but poisoned by bitterness, remained the hardest to read. She watched Lin Feng with a mixture of resentment and fascination, her mind trapped between the girl who had mocked him and the woman who now saw him as a threat to the old order. She still spoke to him with a cool edge, but her eyes lingered. She noticed how the children no longer feared him, how they followed him like ducklings, how he'd let the youngest ride on his shoulders while he tracked deer. One night, she found him alone by the well, washing blood from his hands. "Do you enjoy it?" she asked suddenly, her voice cutting through the silence. "The hunting, the killing, the power." Lin Feng didn't look up. "I enjoy that no one in this house goes to bed hungry. The rest is just survival." She swallowed, turning away, but not before he saw the faint tremor in her shoulders. And fifth sister-in-law Yue, the youngest, was the first to truly see him. Not as a burden, not as a provider, but as a man. She brought him wildflowers she found near the eastern ridge, claiming they were for the house shrine, but she left them on his windowsill. She asked him to teach her how to track, how to read the wind, how to listen to the forest. And when he did, she watched him with eyes that held no calculation, only wonder. "You're different, Lin Feng," she said one evening as the sky bled orange. "You're not just surviving, you're waking up." He looked at her, really looked, and saw the reflection of his own transformation in her youthful face. "Then wake up with me," he said softly. She blushed, ducking her head, but her smile lingered long after she left. But the compound's fragile peace was an illusion woven on a thread. On the 7th night of the new moon, the wind changed. It didn't howl, it whispered, a cold, dry sound that carried the scent of ash and old blood. The dogs, usually restless, fell silent. The crickets stopped. Even the fire in the courtyard burned lower, as if afraid. Lin Feng stood on the roof of the main house, his eyes closed, his senses expanded by the dragon's stomach. He felt it before he saw it, a distortion in the earth's key, a slow, crawling hunger moving through the dead fields. Not an animal, not a beast, something else. Then came the drums, low, rhythmic, maddening. They echoed from the eastern tree line, growing louder with each beat. Torches flared in the distance, casting long, dancing shadows across the cracked earth. Figures emerged from the gloom, dozens of them, clad in patched rags and iron studs, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow. But at their center rode a man on a skeletal horse, draped in a cloak of black wolf pelts. His face was hidden behind a mask of polished bone, but his presence radiated a cold, suffocating aura that made the air itself feel heavy. "The Ashen Pack!" Grandfather Li rasped, leaning on his cane at the courtyard gate, his face pale. "Famine cultists! They don't steal grain. They steal hope. They feed on despair." The masked man raised a hand. The drum stopped, silence fell, thick and suffocating. "Li Wei," the man's voice echoed, smooth as oiled silk, but carrying the weight of a grave. 3 years of starvation have broken your walls. Your stores are empty. Your men are weak. Hand over your last provisions. Hand over the children, and we will let you die quietly. A collective gasp rippled through the compound. The women clutched their children. The elders trembled. Even the hardened guards shifted uneasily. Lin Feng didn't move. He simply stepped down from the roof, his bare feet making no sound on the dirt. He walked past Grandfather Li, past the guards, past the trembling family, and stopped at the courtyard gate. He carried no weapon. He wore only his patched tunic, but his posture was that of a mountain. "You want our provisions?" Lin Feng's voice was calm, but it carried across the silent compound like a temple bell. "You'll have to go through me." The masked man laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "A child playing warrior? How quaint." He gestured lazily. "Kill him." 3 raiders lunged forward, blades drawn, their movements fueled by desperate hunger and darkened ki. They moved fast, but to Lin Feng's awakened senses, they were moving through water. He didn't dodge, he inhaled. The dragon's stomach pulsed. A vortex of golden energy swirled around him, not visible to the untrained eye, but felt by all. The raiders' momentum faltered. Their strikes slowed. Lin Feng stepped forward, his palm open, and pressed it against the lead attacker's chest. Impact. The man didn't just fall. He flew backward 10 feet, crashing into 2 others, bones cracking, breath leaving them in ragged gasps. The compound fell dead silent. Lin Feng didn't stop. He moved like a shadow given form. He disarmed the second raider with a twist of his wrist, used the man's own momentum to throw him into the third, and pinned the leader with a single foot on his throat. All 3 were unconscious before they hit the ground. He turned to the masked man, his eyes now glowing with a faint amber light locked onto the bone mask. "Leave, or I will feed your despair to the earth." The masked man's laughter died. He raised his hand slowly. "Interesting, very interesting." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You carry the breath of the Azure Dragon. I felt it in your strike. A lost legacy. How delicious." Lin Feng's blood ran cold. Azure Dragon? The dragon's stomach within him pulsed violently, reacting to the words. It wasn't just a power, it was a lineage, and this man knew it. "You will not pass this gate," Lin Feng said, his voice hardening. "We already have," the masked man replied. He snapped his fingers. From the shadows behind the raiders, figures emerged, dozens more, but these were different. Their eyes glowed with a sickly green light. Their movements were jerky, unnatural. And at their center walked a man in tattered scholar robes, his face pale, his lips moving in silent chant. He held a wooden talisman that pulsed with dark, corrupt ki. "A corpse herder," Grandfather Li whispered in horror. "He's using famine, dead as puppets." The robed man raised the talisman. The glowing figures lunged forward, not with blades, but with bare hands, their nails blackened, their mouths open in silent screams. Lin Feng didn't hesitate. He closed his eyes, centered his breath, and let the dragon's stomach fully awaken. Golden light erupted from his core, visible now, swirling around him like a miniature sun. The air grew heavy, then hot. The ground trembled. He stepped forward, and with each step, his presence expanded. The first wave of corrupted figures hit his aura and shattered, their dark ki consumed, their bodies collapsing into dust. The herder's eyes widened. "Impossible! The dragon's stomach hasn't been seen in 3 centuries!" Lin Feng didn't answer. He raised his right hand, fingers curled into a loose fist, and brought it down in a slow, deliberate arc. Dragon's palm. A shock wave of golden energy tore through the earth, carving a trench 10 feet deep. It hit the remaining figures, and they disintegrated, their dark ki vaporized. The shockwave continued, slamming into the masked man's horse, which reared and bolted, throwing its rider. The masked man hit the ground hard, his bone mass cracking. He looked up, and for the first time, Lin Feng saw his eyes, cold, calculating, and filled with a hunger that mirrored his own, but twisted, corrupted. "You are strong, boy," the man hissed, scrambling to his feet. "But strength alone cannot stop the famine. The heavens have abandoned this land. Only the Ashen Pack survives. We will return, with an army, and when we do, your golden light will not save you." He threw a smoke bomb at his feet. When the gray cloud cleared, he was gone. The surviving raiders fled into the night, leaving behind only the smell of ash and the echo of their drums. Silence returned to the compound, but it was a different silence now, one of awe, of fear, of realization. Lin Feng stood at the gate, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his brow. The dragon's stomach pulsed slowly, sated but hungry for more. He had won the battle, but the war had just begun. Behind him, the family emerged. Grandfather Li leaned on his cane, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and reverence. The sisters-in-law stood together, their faces pale, their hands trembling. But as they looked at Lin Feng, something shifted in their eyes. Hua's grip on her sleeve tightened. He is not just a provider, he is a shield. Lan covered her mouth, tears welling. He fought for us, without hesitation. Shu's competitive fire cooled into something deeper. He didn't just win, he protected. Mei's bitterness cracked, revealing a raw, undeniable respect. He is the storm. And Yue stepped forward first. She walked to him, her eyes shining, and without a word, she pressed a clean cloth into his hand. "You're bleeding," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "Let me help." He looked at her, at them, at the family he had sworn to protect. The dragon's stomach within him settled into a steady, warm rhythm. He had tasted meat, he had wielded power, but now he understood the true weight of it. Power without purpose is just violence. Power with purpose is destiny. "We prepare," Lin Feng said, his voice ringing across the courtyard. "They will return, and when they do, we will not hide behind walls. We will meet them on the field." But as the family dispersed to fortify the compound, Lin Feng felt a cold prickle at the edge of his awareness. Far to the north, beyond the dead mountains, a massive presence stirred. A hunger older than the famine. A shadow that had been waiting for the dragon's stomach to awaken, and it was smiling. The days following the Ashen Pack's retreat were not marked by peace, but by the heavy, anticipatory silence of a storm gathering on the horizon. The Li compound, once a crumbling monument to famine and despair, now pulsed with a quiet, relentless energy. Lin Feng had transformed the courtyard into a training ground. Where cracked earth and withered weeds once lay, he had drawn intricate key convergence arrays using crushed spirit stones, beast blood, and powdered ironwood ash. The air itself felt denser, charged with the latent vitality of the dragon's stomach, which now burned in his dantian like a miniature sun. He no longer ate merely to survive. He ate to cultivate. Every bite of boar meat, every marrow-rich bone, every drop of wild game essence was meticulously refined through his meridians, forging his bones into tempered steel and his flesh into resilient silk. But power hoarded is power wasted. The dragon's stomach did not just consume, it harmonized. And Lin Feng understood that, to survive the coming war, he could not stand alone. The 5 sisters-in-law, each bound to him by duty, fear, and a slowly blooming loyalty, needed to awaken their own latent potential. He would not make them warriors through force. He would forge them through trial, through trust, through the unspoken language of shared survival. It began with eldest sister-in-law Hua. Hua was the compound's de facto strategist, a woman whose mind was as sharp as a winter frost, but whose heart was locked behind walls of calculation. She had spent years believing that control was the only path to safety. Lin Feng found her at dawn, reviewing supply ledgers by flickering candlelight, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "You map every grain of rice, every drop of water," Lin Feng said, stepping into the room without announcement, "but you do not map your own spirit." Hua looked up, her posture rigid. "Survival requires precision, Lin Feng. Emotion is a luxury the starving cannot afford. Survival also requires flow," he replied. He placed a heavy, obsidian-like stone on her desk. It pulsed with a faint, cool light. This is a mind-clarifying jade. It absorbs chaotic ki and refines mental focus. But it only works if you stop fighting your own instincts and let them guide you. Hua hesitated, then closed her hand around the stone. Instantly, a rush of cold clarity flooded her meridians. Visions flashed behind her eyes. Supply routes, defensive formations, the weak points in the compound's walls, the exact rhythm of the guards' patrols. But more than that, she felt the weight of her own burdens, the fear of losing everything, the guilt of past cruelties, the quiet longing to be seen as more than just a cold administrator. She gasped, tears pricking her eyes. "I've been so afraid of failing them," she whispered. "I thought control would keep us alive." "Control without trust is a cage," Lin Feng said softly. "Lead them. Don't just manage them. Let your heart beat with theirs, and your mind will see paths no ledger could show." From that day, Hua's commands carried a new weight. She stopped dictating and started inspiring. The guards listened not out of fear, but out of respect. Her qui stabilized, forming a subtle, invisible aura of tactical foresight that would soon become the compound's greatest shield. Next was second sister-in-law Lan. Lan had always been the quiet healer, the gentle soul who mended torn clothes, boiled herbal teas, and soothed crying children with soft songs. But gentleness in a famine is often mistaken for weakness. Lin Feng found her in the herb garden, her hands stained with soil, carefully tending to a patch of wilting silver leaf. "You give everything to others," he observed, kneeling beside her, "but who tends to your roots?" Lan smiled faintly. "Someone must keep the hearth warm. Someone must remember what it means to be human when the world turns to ash." Lin Feng reached into his pouch and drew out a vial of glowing blue liquid, essence distilled from a rare water spirit herb he had tracked to a hidden spring 3 miles east. "This is Moonwell Dew. It carries the memory of rain. It will awaken your latent water meridians, but it demands vulnerability. You must stop hiding your pain, let it flow, and it will become a river." Lan took the vial, her fingers trembling. She drank it. The effect was immediate. A cool, soothing energy spread through her chest, dissolving years of swallowed grief. Her hands, once calloused and trembling, grew steady. When she placed her palms on the wilting silver leaf, the plants perked up, leaves unfurling toward her touch like children reaching for a mother. She wept, not from sorrow, but from release. "I forgot how to cry," she whispered. "I thought tears were weakness." "Tears are the earth's rain," Lin Feng said. "Without them, nothing grows." From that day, Lan's presence became a sanctuary. Her touch could soothe fevered brows, her voice could calm panicked hearts. Her qi manifested as a gentle healing mist that accelerated recovery, mended minor wounds, and purged lingering toxins. She was no longer just the quiet wife. She was the compound's living wellspring. Third sister-in-law, Shu, demanded a different approach. Shu was fire wrapped in silk, competitive, proud, relentless. She had watched Lin Feng's rise with a mixture of resentment and fascination, her sharp tongue masking a deep-seated fear of irrelevance. Lin Feng found her at midnight, practicing sword forms with a wooden staff in the training yard, her movements precise but rigid, her breath uneven. "You strike like you're trying to prove something," he called out, leaning against the courtyard wall. "But the blade doesn't care about pride, it only answers to intent." Shu stopped, turning to face him, her chest heaving. "Intent? I'm trying to survive, to not be left behind, to not be the one who needs saving." "Then stop fighting me," Lin Feng said, stepping into the yard. He picked up a matching staff. "Fight yourself." He didn't give her technique. He gave her chaos. He struck with unpredictable angles, feinted, reversed stances, forced her to adapt in real time. Hours passed. Sweat soaked their clothes. Shu's arms burned, her legs trembled, but she refused to yield. Finally, exhausted and frustrated, she dropped to one knee, gasping. "I can't," she choked out. "I'm not you." "You don't need to be me," Lin Feng said, offering his hand. "You need to be Shu. Your fire isn't a flaw, it's a forge. Stop trying to control it, let it burn, let it cut, let it protect." She took his hand, and in that moment, something shifted. Her ki, once jagged and scattered, aligned into a single razor-sharp intent. She stood, gripped her staff, and struck. Not with rage, but with clarity. The air split with a sharp crack. A practice dummy 10 paces away split cleanly down the middle. Shu stared at the wood, then at her hands, then at Lin Feng. A slow, genuine smile broke across her face. Teach me the next form. From that day, Shu became the compound spear. Her movements grew fluid, deadly, precise. Her competitive fire transformed into disciplined focus. She no longer saw Lin Feng as a rival, but as a whetstone. And in the quiet moments after training, when their hands brushed passing water skins, a new respect, unspoken but undeniable, settled between them. Fourth sister-in-law Mei was the hardest to reach. Mei carried bitterness like a second skin. Her beauty was a weapon, her words a shield, her heart a locked vault. She had suffered in silence for years, watching the compounds decline, enduring the arrogance of her elders, swallowing her pride to keep her children fed. Lin Feng found her on the roof at dusk, staring at the blood-red horizon, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. "You think I don't see it?" he said, stepping beside her. "The way you look at the sky, like it owes you something it can never repay." Mei didn't turn. "The sky doesn't owe me anything, it just watches, just like everyone else." "Then stop waiting for the sky to weep," Lin Feng said. He placed a small, frosted vial in her hands. "This is frost vein extract. It's drawn from ice lotus roots that only bloom in the dead of winter. It doesn't heal, it purges. It will burn the poison of resentment from your meridians, but it will hurt. It will force you to feel everything you've buried." Mei's fingers closed around the vial. She didn't drink it, she uncorked it and inhaled. The effect was instantaneous. A wave of icy fire shot through her chest, followed by a torrent of memories. The night her family's estate was seized, the day her father was executed on false charges, the years of swallowing humiliation to survive. She collapsed to her knees, gasping, tears streaming down her face, her beautiful features contorted in agony. But beneath the pain, something cracked. The bitterness dissolved. In its place rose a cold, unbreakable resolve. When she finally looked up, her eyes were no longer clouded with resentment. They were clear, sharp, and dangerously calm. "I won't cry for them again," she whispered. "I'll make them pay." Lin Feng nodded. "Good. Let your ice be precise. Let your beauty be a blade. Let your silence be a warning." From that day, Mei became the compound shadow. She moved without sound, observed without being seen, struck without hesitation. Her ki manifested as a chilling aura that slowed opponents, froze moisture in the air, and masked her presence from even the most skilled trackers. She no longer spoke in riddles. She spoke in truths. And when her gaze met Lin Feng's across the courtyard, there was no longer bitterness, only recognition, only loyalty. Fifth sister-in-law Yue needed no trial. She only needed permission. Yue had always been the light in the compound's darkness, innocent, curious, deeply attuned to the natural world. She followed Lin Feng like a shadow, asking questions about tracking, about herbs, about the way the wind carried scents, about the rhythm of animal footsteps. Lin Feng never dismissed her. He listened, he taught, he encouraged. But Yue's true awakening came when Lin Feng placed his hand on her forehead during a meditation session and shared a fraction of his dragon stomach essence, not to empower her, to connect with her. The moment their ki touched, Yue gasped. Visions flooded her mind. The ancient ley lines beneath the earth, the sleeping spirits of the forest, the whispered songs of the wind, the quiet heartbeat of the land itself. She fell to her knees, trembling, tears streaming down her face. "I can hear them," she whispered. "The earth, it's crying, it's starving. The famine, it's not natural. Something is draining it, something deep beneath the northern mountains." Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. "Show me." Yue closed her eyes, focusing. The ground beneath them trembled faintly. A pulse of green-gold light radiated from her palms, forming a crude map in the dirt, a network of spiritual veins converging at a single dark point far to the north. A black aura pulsed around it, siphoning the land's vitality. "The heaven-devouring cauldron," a voice rasped from the courtyard gate. Both turned. An old man stood there, leaning on a gnarled wooden staff. His clothes were patched rags, his face weathered by decades of sun and wind, but his eyes, though clouded with blindness, held an ancient, piercing wisdom. His presence carried the weight of a forgotten era. "Who are you?" Lin Feng demanded, stepping forward, his qui instantly flaring in defense. "The last breath of a dead sect," the old man replied, tapping his staff once. "I am Elder Mo, once of the Azure Dragon Pavilion, now a wandering ghost. I felt your awakening, boy. The dragon's stomach does not sleep. It waits, and it has chosen you. Lin Feng's breath caught. The Azure Dragon Pavilion. The name resonated with the memories Master Shen's teachings had hinted at. A legendary cultivation sect that had vanished centuries ago, said to have guarded the spiritual balance of the realm. The famine is not a punishment from heaven. Elder Mo continued, his voice carrying the weight of prophecy. It is a theft. Beneath Mount Taihang lies a corrupted artifact, the heaven-devouring cauldron. It was sealed by my ancestors after a great war, but greed broke the wards. A cabal of corrupt officials, rogue cultivators, and the Ashen Pack have unearthed it. They feed it the land's vitality to fuel their own immortality. They call themselves the Crimson Veil, and they are coming for you. Lin Feng's fist clenched. The pieces clicked into place. The masked leader's mention of his lineage, the strange, unnatural famine, the systematic draining of the region's spiritual veins, his parents' mysterious deaths. It was never just famine. It was a harvest. Why me? Lin Feng asked, his voice low. Because the dragon's stomach is the only cultivation technique capable of absorbing corrupted qi, purifying it, and returning it to the earth. Elder Mo said, You are not just a survivor, Lin Feng. You are a catalyst. But you cannot face the Crimson Veil alone. You need allies. You need an army. And you need to awaken the 5 hearts of the Li compound. They are not just sisters-in-law. They are the pillars of the Azure Dragon's legacy, dormant in your bloodline. Hua the mind, Lan the spirit, Shu the sword, Mei the shadow, Yue the earth. Unite them, and the land will rise with you. Lin Feng looked at the 5 women standing behind him. Hua, her eyes sharp with strategic clarity. Lan, her hands glowing with gentle vitality. Shu, her posture rigid with disciplined focus. Mei, her presence cold and unyielding. Yue, her eyes wide with spiritual connection. They had changed. They had grown. They were ready. Then we marched north. Lin Feng said, but the Crimson Veil did not wait. 3 days later, the sky turned the color of dried blood. The wind carried a sickly sweet stench of decay. From the northern tree line emerged a procession of black banners, each emblazoned with a crimson teardrop. At their head rode the famine general, a hulking figure clad in armor forged from bleached bone, mounted on a skeletal warhorse that breathed black smoke. Behind him marched 200 Ashen Pack disciples, their eyes hollow, their movements synchronized by a dark, rhythmic chanting. They planted 7 black banners in a circle around the Li compound's outer fields. The moment the final banner struck the earth, the ground trembled. A visible wave of corrupted qi spread outward, draining the life from the soil. Crops withered in seconds. Trees shed their leaves like autumn snow. Animals collapsed, their life force siphoned into the banners. The blood famine formation, Elder Mo whispered, gripping his staff. It will drain the compound's spiritual veins within hours. If it completes, everyone inside will wither into dust. Lin Feng didn't hesitate. Hua, organize the guards, form the inner perimeter. Lan, prepare healing arrays. Shu, take the vanguard. Mei, scout the banner anchors. Yue, sync with the earth's remaining veins. I'll take the center. They moved as one, no hesitation, no fear, only purpose. Lin Feng stepped into the center of the courtyard, closed his eyes, and opened his mouth. The dragon's stomach roared to life. A vortex of golden energy spiraled around him, pulling in the corrupted qi from the formation, purifying it through his meridians and expelling it as a wave of revitalizing light. The ground beneath him cracked, then bloomed with green shoots. The air grew thick with the scent of rain and earth, but the famine general was not idle. He raised a jagged black sword, chanting in a guttural tongue. The banners flared. A concentrated beam of corrupted energy shot toward Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't dodge. He stepped forward, formed his right hand into a palm, and struck the air. Azure Dragon's crushing palm. The golden shockwave collided with the black beam. The sky split. The earth quaked. For 3 seconds, neither yielded. Then, with a deafening crack, Lin Feng's palm shattered the beam, sending a wave of purified energy racing toward the banners. One by one, they ignited, turning to ash. The famine general roared, leaping from his horse, his sword carving through the air with deadly precision. He moved faster than the eye could follow, a whirlwind of bone and shadow. Lin Feng met him strike for strike, their ki clashing in sparks of gold and black. Each impact shook the courtyard, each exchange tested their limits. But Lin Feng had the dragon's stomach. He absorbed the general's strikes, refined the corrupted energy, and redirected it back with twice the force. The general staggered, his armor cracking, his breath ragged. "You cannot win," the general spat, blood dripping from his lips. "The Crimson Veil has already harvested half the province. Your land is already dead. You fight for ghosts." "I fight for what's left," Lin Feng replied. He raised both palms, channeling every ounce of his cultivated ki, every drop of beast essence, every ounce of the sisters-in-law's faith. Dragon's heaven-shattering strike. He struck the general's chest. The impact was silent. Then a shockwave erupted, tearing through the Ashen Pack ranks, shattering the remaining banners, and sending the general flying backward. He hit the ground hard, his sword shattering, his armor crumbling. He looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "The dragon's stomach! It's real! The prophecy! It's true!" Lin Feng stood over him, his chest heaving, his eyes glowing with amber fire. "Tell your masters, the Li compound does not starve. We feast, and we are coming for you." The general coughed blood, then smiled, a grim, broken thing. "You think this is victory? The Crimson Veil is not just a cult. It's the magistrate's private army, the man who burned your parents' estate, the man who sealed the cauldron. He's waiting for you at Mount Tai Hang, and he has the heaven-devouring cauldron's core. It will consume you, boy. It will consume everything." Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. The magistrate. The name echoed like a death knell. The pieces aligned, his parents' death, the stolen inheritance. The famine, the cult, all roads led north, to the mountain, to the truth, to the final reckoning. The Ashen Pack remnants fled, leaving behind only ash and silence. The compound stood. The land breathed again. The 5 sisters-in-law gathered around Lin Feng, their faces streaked with dirt, sweat, and quiet triumph. They had fought, they had survived, they had awakened, but the true war had not yet begun. As the sun set over the revived fields, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold, Lin Feng stood on the courtyard wall looking north. The dragon's stomach pulsed steadily, a warm, unyielding sun within him. He felt the weight of his bloodline, the loyalty of his family, the promise of justice. He would march. He would fight. He would tear the cauldron from the earth and return the land's vitality to the people. And he would not walk alone. The northern march was not a journey of footsteps, but of blood, earth, and awakening heaven. Lin Feng led the vanguard, his boots leaving faint golden imprints on the cracked soil with every stride. Behind him marched not a ragged band of starving villagers, but a disciplined force forged in famine and tempered by dragon fire. The Li compound had transformed from a crumbling monument of despair into a mobile fortress of cultivation. Guards moved in synchronized formations, their ki harmonized by Hua's tactical arrays. Lan's healing mist drifted through the ranks, sealing minor wounds and purging the lingering corruption of the dead fields. Shu walked at the flank, her wooden staff replaced by a forged iron spear, her eyes sharp, her posture unyielding. Mei moved like a shadow along the tree line, her presence so cold and controlled that even the crows avoided her path. And Yue walked at the rear, her bare feet brushing the earth, her palms pressed to the soil, listening to the dying whispers of the land's spiritual veins. They were no longer survivors, they were hunters. The famine had stripped the northern plains to bone. Trees stood as petrified sentinels, their branches clawing at a sky the color of bruised iron. The wind carried the scent of ash and old blood, but beneath it, Lin Feng's dragon stomach sensed something deeper. A slow, rhythmic pulsing, like a monstrous heart buried beneath the mountain. Mount Taihang loomed ahead, its peaks shrouded in unnatural clouds that swirled in clockwise patterns, siphoning the region's remaining vitality. At its base lay the Crimson Veil stronghold, a fortress carved into the living rock, its walls lined with obsidian banners bearing the teardrop sigil, its gates guarded by disciples whose eyes glowed with hollow, hungry light. "We breach at dusk," Lin Feng said, his voice carrying over the wind. "The earth's ki is weakest when the sun bleeds out. That is when the cauldron's seal is most vulnerable." Hua stepped forward, unrolling a tactical scroll etched with glowing cinnabar lines. "The outer defenses are layered. First, the Ashen Pack skirmishers. Second, the corpse herder arrays. Third, the Crimson Guard, elite cultivators bound by blood contracts to the magistrate. They do not fear death. They feed on it. Then we do not give them death, Lin Feng replied. We give them nothing. Shu twirled her spear, the iron singing. I'll take the vanguard, break their formation, shatter their morale. Lan placed a hand on Shu's shoulder, and I will weave a barrier of spirit water. It will dampen their blood contracts, severing their link to the magistrate's command. May's voice cut through the wind, cold and precise. I will infiltrate the eastern watchtower, disable the signal drums. Without them, the garrison cannot coordinate. Yue knelt, pressing her palms to the earth. The mountain weeps. There are 3 hidden spiritual wells beneath the fortress. If we rupture them, the cauldron's absorption array will destabilize. But someone is already there, someone guarding them. Lin Feng's amber eyes narrowed. We move as one. Strike fast. Leave no anchor unbroken. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in violent shades of crimson and violet, the mountain answered with a sound that froze the blood in their veins. A horn, deep, resonant, ancient. It did not sound like a warning. It sounded like an invitation. The fortress gates groaned open, not to repel them, to welcome them. From the darkness emerged a procession of crimson-robed figures, parting to reveal a man seated on a palanquin carried by 6 silent bearers. He was not armored. He wore simple silk robes of deep burgundy, his face unlined, his hair bound in a jade crown. His eyes were closed, but his presence pressed against the air like a physical weight, suffocating, ancient, and terrifyingly calm. This was the magistrate, the architect of the famine, the man who had burned Lin Feng's parents' estate, the man who had sealed the heaven-devouring cauldron. He opened his eyes. They were not cruel, they were empty, like wells that had drunk too much. Lin Feng, the magistrate's voice echoed, not through the air, but directly in their minds. You have walked far to return what was never yours. Lin Feng stepped forward, the dragon's stomach pulsing in his chest. I have come to return what you stole, the land's vitality, my family's legacy, my parents' lives. The magistrate smiled. It was not a smile of malice. It was a smile of profound, weary recognition. Your parents were not murdered, boy. They were sacrificed, voluntarily, to keep the cauldron sealed until the dragon's stomach awakened. They knew the truth. They chose the famine over the flood. Lin Feng's breath caught. The words struck like poisoned darts. Lies. Are they? The magistrate raised a hand. From behind the palanquin, 2 figures were dragged forward by crimson guards. Their faces were gaunt, their robes torn, but their eyes were unmistakable. Lin Feng's father, Li Chen, Lin Feng's mother, Lin Yue. They were alive, but barely. Their skin was translucent, their meridians visible beneath the flesh like glowing rivers of cracked glass. They knelt on the stone steps, their heads bowed, their breathing shallow. Feng! His mother whispered, her voice a fragile thread. Do not let him win. The magistrate's smile faded. They bound their life force to the cauldron's seal a decade ago. Their bodies are failing, their souls are fraying. But if you step into the fortress, if you attempt to shatter the cauldron, the seal breaks. The accumulated famine energy will flood the land. Millions will die in hours. Your parents will die, and the dragon's stomach will be consumed by the backlash. You cannot save them. You can only choose who drowns first. Silence fell over the vanguard. The wind seemed to hold its breath. Hua's tactical mind raced, searching for an escape, a flaw, a loophole. Lan's healing mist flickered, overwhelmed by the oppressive aura. Shu's grip tightened on her spear, her knuckles white. May's shadow aura rippled, her breathing uneven. Yue fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as the earth's pain echoed through her bones. Lin Feng did not flinch. He looked at his parents, he looked at the magistrate, he looked at the mountain, and then he laughed. It was not a laugh of madness, it was a laugh of clarity, of absolute, unshakable certainty. You think the dragon's stomach is a vessel to be filled? Lin Feng's voice rang out, clear as a temple bell. You think it is a tool to be wielded? You are wrong. It is a crucible. It does not consume, it transforms. It does not hoard, it returns. He closed his eyes, he opened his mouth, and he inhaled, not air, not ki, not vitality. He inhaled the famine itself, The ground trembled, the sky darkened. A vortex of black and gold energy spiraled around him, pulling the corrupted atmosphere into his core. The dragon's stomach roared not with hunger, but with purpose. It did not reject the despair, it absorbed it, it refined it. It forged it into something new. His parents gasped as the invisible chains binding their souls loosened. The magistrate's eyes widened for the first time. Impossible. You are reversing the polarity. You are taking the curse into yourself. Lin Feng opened his eyes. They were no longer amber. They were twin suns, burning with golden fire and black void. I will not break the seal. I will become it. He took a step forward, then another. The Crimson Guards raised their weapons, but their blades shattered before they could strike. The corpse herder arrays flickered and died. The ashen-packed disciples fell to their knees, their hollow eyes filling with tears as the famine's weight was lifted from their shoulders. But as Lin Feng reached the fortress steps, a voice cut through the storm. Stop. It was Mei. She stepped forward, her shadow aura dissolving, her hands trembling. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with terror and shame. In her right hand, she held a jade talisman pulsing with crimson light, the Crimson Veil's command sigil. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. They have my brother. They have held him in the western dungeon for 3 years. They said if I disabled the outer wards, if I led you into the inner courtyard, they would spare him. I tried to fight it. I tried to warn you, but I'm weak. I'm so weak. She raised the talisman. Activate the blood prison array. Seal him. Please, just let him live. The talisman flared. Crimson light erupted from the ground, forming geometric patterns that locked around Lin Feng's ankles, his wrists, his throat. The dragon fire in his eyes flickered. The vortex stalled. The magistrate watched, silent, as the trap closed. Lin Feng did not struggle. He looked at Mei, really looked. He saw the girl who had swallowed her pride to survive, the woman who had turned bitterness into ice, the sister-in-law who had guarded their backs in the dark. The sister-in-law who had chosen love over loyalty, fear over faith. He smiled. Mei, he said softly, look at me. She trembled, unable to meet his gaze. I do not need your loyalty. He said, I need your trust. Give it to me, now.